Hello YouTube, this is going to be the 5 pillars of hypertrophy training. Well, the first thing we're going to address is if you're training to build muscle, it's imperative that you know that getting stronger in the gym is basically how you're going to make progress. There's no other way around it. You're not going to stretch your muscles into growing. You're not going to time under tension them into growing. I'm not saying that you're going to be just ego lifting inside of the gym, but I'm just gonna explain that a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. Essentially, if this needs context, but this is essentially the big idea. So first set stimulus, that's the first pillar, or that principle says that your first set to failure or close to failure is going to be the most stimulating set of that muscle group in the entire training session. And that basically entails that every set that after that you do is going to be less stimulating towards hypertrophy. The second pillar or the second principle is frequency. You basically want to train your muscles at least twice a week. 3 times for some muscles it's cool to train them 3 times a week. That's even really better. But for some muscles, it's basically enough to train them twice a week, and that's how you're going to be making the most amount of progress. Volume. You, People that say that high volume is like 15 to 20 sets per training cycle or per week, that's like unrecoverable. It's simply dumb to do 15 sets a week. Moderate volume would be somewhere around 5 to 6 sets. High volume would be somewhere around 7 to 8 sets. And yeah, I personally use 5 to 6 sets per week, and that's where I've been seeing the most amount of progress. Obviously, not for every single muscle, but for most of them. The second principle is progress. I've touched upon this earlier, so basically, a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. So if you can add a rep or add weight to your sets every single training session, that should um, that should mean you're making progress and you're building muscle. In the first few weeks, it's going to be mostly like neurological adaptations. Basically, you're just getting used to the movement. You're just, and if you know that a movement is good, is meaning when those adaptations can top off pretty easily. For example, like after 2 weeks, you're gonna stop making as much progress. For example, you're gonna be adding like 5 kilos to, let's say, a dumbbell shoulder press when you first do it. But after a while, you're still going to be making those adaptations and less, hypertrophy adaptations, simply because the exercise is very hard to learn. You're constantly balancing 2 dumbbells on top of your head, and that makes it a less smart option for hypertrophy. So yeah, another alternative would be like a Smith machine or just a machine shoulder press. That would be a lot smarter because the neurological adaptation will top off pretty slowly, but pretty fast, because the exercise is pretty easy to learn, essentially. And yeah, that should explain progress pretty well. Recovery. Basically, you want a day to recover after every training session. Let's say, for example, you're doing upper lower, you're gonna want a day to recover after every same session. You're gonna be doing upper, then resting, and lower, then resting, and you can just continuously do that for as long as possible. Or you can do like two training days on and one training day off, and 2 training days on and 2 training days off. So that would look like training Monday would be an upper day, Tuesday would be a lower day, you would rest on Wednesday, then you would train Thursday and Friday, then you would rest on the weekend. That should explain that pretty well. So now that I've explained the 5 pillars or 5 principles of hypertrophy training, I'm now going to be explaining programming for those principles. And a good program would allow for a decent amount of recovery and a decent amount of stimulus, or less atrophy period. So after like 48 hours, the muscle you just trained starts to atrophy. And contrary to popular belief, it doesn't really take that long. You know, people usually say it takes a week or 2 weeks to start for muscles to start atrophying, which is completely wrong. Muscles actually start atrophying at around 48 hours or 40 hours to 72 hours after training them. So yeah, you basically want to have as low possible atrophy period. So basically, after 2 days, you want to train that muscle again, and that pretty much sums up recovery. So basically, you want a good program again would basically have as many of those first sets as possible, and for every single muscle group, basically. So that's where the idea of upper, lower, or full body comes from. You basically want to have those first sets, which are the most stimulating, you know, be as hard as possible, then you move on to something else. And that's basically the idea behind it. The program, upper, lower, or full body, would be pretty much very hard to explain in one video, but I'll pretty much try to give y'all like the basic principles. You want your single arm work or your single leg work to be at the end because it's a good way to have like a more motor unit equipment. Basically, you're trained harder on them, but they cause a lot of fatigue, which means they're gonna affect muscles that or exercises that that you're gonna be doing after them. So you're gonna want to do them at the end so that you can benefit from the high motor unit recruitment and also not affect your other muscles. Also, lengthened work are basically exercises where it's hardest at where the muscle is stretched, not stretched but lengthened. Um, let's say, for example, a chest press versus a chest fly. A chest press is hardest at the bottom. A chest fly is hardest at at the end of the movement. So basically, if you just want to like maintain or just keep up frequency without adding too much fatigue, just pick a chest fly instead of a chest press because it's going to be less fatiguing. Also, that explains why leg extensions are less fatiguing than let's say for example a hack squat or squat pattern. And that should be it. Thanks for watching, and yeah, there are going to be a lot more videos to come, and like, subscribe, or all will come in your pants.